You wake up around dawn. The fire is still going. There's leftover meat from yesterday, enough for now, and nobody is coming to kill you. The day is just open. Anthropologists who study pre-agricultural peoples estimate that basic survival took between 15 and 20 hours a week, a part-time job. So, what did ancient humans do with the rest of their time? The answer is stranger, more creative, and more human than you'd expect. And it explains something about why you're watching this right now. Think about what you do on a slow afternoon. Maybe you doodle something. Maybe you pick up a half-finished project. Maybe you rearrange things that don't need rearranging. You probably feel a little guilty about it, like you should be doing something productive instead. Here's the thing. That impulse, the one that makes you reach for something to make or fix or build during empty hours, is not a modern quirk. The archaeological record shows it running back at least 100,000 years. And what people made during that time wasn't random. It was skilled, it was deliberate, and it cost them real effort to produce. Start with the least glamorous example because it's actually the most telling. Inside caves across Europe and Africa, archaeologists have found dense concentrations of stone flaking debris, the tiny chips and fragments left behind when someone naps flint into a tool. What's significant isn't that the debris exists, it's where it clusters, consistently near the back walls, near the spots where firelight would have been strongest at night away from the entrance. This wasn't emergency repair work done in a panic before a hunt. The pattern suggests someone sat down in a good light spot and worked stone for hours. Not because a tool had broken, because they had time and making things well mattered to them. Then there's Blombos Cave in South Africa. Researchers there found perforated shell beads dating back 100,000 years, tiny holes drilled through seashells, clearly meant to be strung together. The nearest coastline was 20 kilometers away. Someone walked 40 kilometers round trip just to collect the shells. Then they came back and spent hours drilling precise holes through each one with stone tools. Not for food, not for warmth, to look good. That's a significant investment of time and energy in pure aesthetics, which means aesthetics were already a human priority before anything we'd recognize as civilization existed. Now push the timeline forward and the surprise gets crazier. In 2008, researchers excavating a site in southwestern Germany found a flute carved from a vulture bone. It was 40,000 years old. 5 finger holes, perfectly and evenly spaced. Whoever carved it didn't stumble into music, they understood pitch. They understood that the spacing of holes changes the note. They spent real time on an object whose only function is to produce sound. It does nothing else. It can't cut, can't carry, can't start a fire, it just makes music. And someone decided that was worth the hours. Each of these, the tool-making sessions, the shell jewelry, the bone flute, tells you the same thing. Downtime wasn't spent staring at the ceiling, it was spent building competence, making things, producing objects that required skill and patience. That's not accidental. Skill earns respect in a small group. Being the person who makes the best tools, or the sharpest looking jewelry, or the instrument nobody else can play, that has social weight. The hobbies weren't separate from survival. They were quietly tangled up in it. And then there's Chauvet Cave in southern France, and this one should stop you cold. The paintings inside are roughly 36,000 years old. Horses, lions, rhinoceroses rendered with perspective, shading, and actual movement, not crude outlines. Sophisticated, deliberate art. But here's the detail that changes everything. These paintings aren't near the cave entrance. They're hundreds of meters in, through passages you have to crawl through in chambers of absolute darkness. Someone carried animal fat lamps deep into the earth and painted by that tiny, flickering light. Nobody does that on a busy hunting day. This happened during the slow hours, the empty hours. So their hands were occupied. The question is what their mouths were doing during all of it and what that produced across thousands of years. Someone walked 40 kilometers to collect shells just to look good. Would you have bothered? Drop your answer in the comments below. Now, their hands were busy making things. But the real question is, what was happening around the fire when the work was done? But here's where the story gets stranger, because all of those objects, the shell beads, the bone flute, the cave paintings made deep in the dark, were made by individuals. One person, one lamp, one set of hands. What happened when they brought those things back to the group is a different question entirely. And the answer to that question is what actually built civilization. In 2014, anthropologist Polly Wiesner published a study comparing daytime conversations and nighttime fireside conversations among the Jew Huanzi Bushmen of the Kalahari. The results were striking. During the day, people talked about practical things, resources, land, disputes, logistics. At night, around the fire, over 80% of conversation shifted to stories, songs, and ceremonies. Same people, same community, completely different mode. The firelight changed what humans talked about. We tend to think of storytelling as entertainment, something you do when the real work is finished. That's wrong. The stories being told around that fire were survival technology, where water sources dry up in summer, which plants cause convulsions versus which ones just taste bad. How to read the behavior of a specific animal before it charges. That information couldn't be written down. There were no books, no maps, no databases. The only storage system that existed was other people's memories, and the delivery mechanism was a story told well enough that someone remembered it 20 years later and told it to someone else. That's not gossip. That's a knowledge transfer system running on human attention. Now, consider the scale of what that system was capable of. The oldest verified oral traditions on Earth belong to Australian Aboriginal communities. Some of those stories describe coastline geography, specific bays, headlands, islands that no longer exist. They were swallowed by rising sea levels roughly 7,000 years ago. The stories survived, 7,000 years of people telling them to each other, around fires exactly like the ones their ancestors sat beside, and the geographical information stayed intact. No institution maintained it. No archive preserved it. Just people, in the dark, keeping the thread alive. That should be almost impossible, and yet. Now add one more layer, because this one tends to surprise people. Before artificial light, humans didn't sleep the way you do. Researchers studying sleep patterns in populations without electric light have found consistent evidence of two-phase sleep, roughly 4 hours, then a period of quiet wakefulness lasting an hour or two, then another 4 hours. That middle window, awake in total darkness, wasn't wasted. It was quiet, intimate, almost certainly filled with exactly the kind of low-stakes conversation, reflection, and closeness that builds the bonds the group depended on. The village wasn't just connected around the fire at night, it was connected again in the small hours, in the dark, in the spaces between sleep. So here's what all of it adds up to. You started this video asking what ancient humans did when they weren't surviving. The answer is, they were doing the things that made survival possible across thousands of years. The tool-making built competence and earned respect. The art built shared meaning. The music built emotional memory. The stories moved critical knowledge from one generation to the next without losing it. The bonds built around the fire and in the dark hours were the safety net that caught you when the hunt failed, when you got sick, when the rains didn't come. None of it looked like work. None of it had a supervisor or a deadline. But it was the work that compounded. Every generation that sat around a fire and told stories well left the next generation slightly better equipped than the one before it. That's not a hobby. That's the mechanism. And the fact that you still make things, still tell stories, still stay up too late talking to people you care about, that's not a modern habit you picked up somewhere. That's 300,000 years old. It's the most human thing there is. The question worth sitting with is this: when you finally have a slow afternoon, are you actually wasting it, or are you doing exactly what you were built for? Subscribe if you want to know more about what life was really like back then, and watch this video about why your brain creates terrifying nightmares.